Devo Davis gets ejected, and Trayvon Mark says, "Get on my back, boys. I know I heard it in the North Carolina game, but I'll carry you across the finish line," as Arkansas gets their first SEC win and defeats the Texas A&M Aggies by a score of 78-77. This is Arkansas Basketball Recap. That's Jacob Price. I'm Daniel Price. We're here to recap it all. Oh, man. You were at the end. Well, shoot, man. It's 7 seconds left in this game. You thought you had just been gut punched. You thought you had just died. You just thought that Arkansas was never going to win again if they didn't win this game. And Tremont Mark, honestly, in an unbelievable, first of all, Wade's shot to put A&M ahead was ridiculous. And the kind of shot that everyone has played a lot of basketball has experienced, and it's just it's almost impossible to overcome it. A&M does something I can't believe they do, which is just let Tremont Mark get the ball.
I mean, they kind of faked at a double team, but then didn't double team.
It was weird. I mean, Tremont Mark came up, got the ball with not really any resistance, and went down and hits a, I don't know, 6 foot jumper floater. Game over. Arkansas wins by 1.
And I don't know A&M's team well enough. I haven't seen them play a lot this year, but I'm assuming they would have liked to have those other two guys. Like those other two guys seemed like they were like pretty important defensively, and I think they probably would have. They were a little disorganized without those guys in there. I think I mean
yeah,
they were they're already missing one of their main pieces, and then the two foul outs. I think they just didn't. I mean that's why. I mean Taylor was having to do everything. What's his name?
yeah,
Wade Taylor.
yeah,
Yeah, he just had to do everything himself because they just got so discombobulated.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's a very strange game to try to analyze because, I mean, if you're being pessimistic, you could say, A&M didn't play that well. They were missing some guys. They got in early foul trouble with some important guys. They missed a lot of shots. I mean, and that was actually part of the reason. Part of the reason it's frustrating for them to get all those rebounds, but at the same time, it's like there was just a ton of rebounds to be had. Although, I mean, we definitely one of the worst things we did was definitely box out offensive or on the defensive side of the ball. But um, still, regardless, it's also part of those rebounding numbers were because they were just yanking everything off the back of the rim, and
Yeah.
it was creating a lot of long rebounds, which tend to go over your head even if you are boxed out.
Well, it's a weird thing that Texas A&M has the okay. You have to remember this is a Texas A&M team that just beat Kentucky. Okay, so like you're not talking about like a bad team or anything. They just beat Kentucky. Texas A&M is last in the SEC in field goal percentage and number one in the country, not in the conference, in the country in offensive rebounding. What it tells me, Buzz Williams is a good coach. He's like, we're going to miss a lot of shots. We don't have like a ton of shooters. He's got his whole team crashing the glass. I mean, those guys, a shot for them is like an opportunity to get an easier shot, right? Like, I mean, that's just how they're rolling. There was no world in which Arkansas was going to out rebound Texas A&M, and it's not. And here's the thing. I think this is why like some of the frustration that you'll hear from us is this sort of thing. Texas A&M is not a big team. They don't. It's not like they got like a 7'1" guy and a 6'11" guy, and that's their 4 and 5, and you're just like, man, they're not bigger than anybody. We're bigger than them. They just have it drilled into their head that they crash the offensive glass, and that's what they do. And you can't teach that overnight. Buzz Williams has a bunch of guys. Not even that Buzz Williams teaches it, but he got a bunch of guys that are willing to do it and are used to doing it, I think, and that's what it is. Wade Taylor's like a special dude. I don't think that like our defense on him was particularly bad or anything. I mean, The announcers, I actually thought the announcers kind of nailed this game, which is very rare for me to say. But a lot of things they were saying were right, which is like, hey, the tougher the shot, the more likely it goes in with him. You know, he just, I mean, making just really tough shots. And then the other thing was they nailed was Arkansas tries to block too many shots with too many guys and isn't in position to rebound. And that was one of the more astute observations that I've heard from an announcer because that's absolutely the case.
Well, that's part of their bad defense. Part of the whole thing we've been talking about, where the guys, they just don't have instinctive defense. They don't have good defensive instincts. And part of that is like one of the hardest things to do in basketball as defense is help exactly at the appropriate time from the appropriate angle. Because a good offensive player will always be tempting the center and then dribble back towards the block. You know what I mean? Like he's always like sensing the help coming, and then and that's why you see a guy like 1 foot over, 1 foot back, and then but there's always a level where now you're committed. Like
Yeah.
once you step over a certain threshold, now you have to swarm because now you've left yourself vulnerable, and you have to be guarding the passing lanes, and you have to attack the ball. And I mean, it's just a difficult when to know exactly when to pull the trigger on that. And sometimes,
Especially, dude, especially when you're playing against the preseason SEC Player of the Year and like an elite offensive talent like Wade Taylor.
yeah, somebody who's a good point guard that knows exactly how to do that and how to where it's coming from and where to pass the ball. And um, we did a better. What I was gonna say is, like I said, if you wanted to be pessimistic and down on the Hogs, because this game wasn't like that. Bam, come to Jesus. Well, this game didn't end up being what it looked like it might have been for the first 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, they had a come to Jesus moment. This is going to be, the inflection point, the watershed, whatever the cliche you want to use. But it didn't turn out that way. It was like A&M, struggled to get off the ground. And I think part of that was, like I said, they were that big guy, dude, Coleman, was his name Coleman or whatever? I remember him from last year. Like that dude he's a pivotal part of their offense. And I mean, he's great in the pick and roll. He's a huge. Is he their biggest body, or is he just like their power forward?
I don't know if he's their tall. I don't know if he's their tallest guy, but he's a big guy.
Remember, he plays big. Um, at any rate, they were a little bit discombobulated. We got a big lead, but then, like I said, if you're being pessimistic, you go, yeah, but then we let that lead go. We probably should have lost, even though they were down a couple of a player, and then eventually three players. But I think it's appropriate to look at it, and I think Arkansas did do some things better in this game.
Yeah,
And
for sure, dude.
the fact of the matter is, even with A&M doing some things poorly, they also, you could just as easily look at it and go, well, yeah, but also Taylor went like for every open shot that they could have made that you were just like saying a Hail Mary and thanks for missing. Wade made one that you couldn't believe he made. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like it wasn't like it was all them missing shots. They made some ridiculous shots just as well. And so, I mean, like I said, the guy goes for 40 and you still manage to and hits crazy shots and freaking blindfolded and you still manage to win the game. I mean, I'm going to take it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's like this. Well, that now maybe this is the turnaround point in the season, but it is absolutely something to build on because the thing is, Arkansas still made a lot of mistakes. They still did a lot of the things a lot of things that have been plaguing them were still there, but at least to a lesser degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the exception of offensive rebounding, I mean, defensive rebounding. But like I said, all of that wasn't necessarily it's like a team that makes the most three pointers, but they also shoot them 10 times more than anybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Like you said, it wasn't they do attack the boards, but a lot of it's opportunity too. They miss a lot of shots and they miss a lot of shots hard.
Well, you're not gonna turn the rebounding around against the best rebounding team in the country. That's not the game that you probably turn that around on, you know? And so where like you're not going to out rebound that team. That's not what's going to happen. But I did think that I actually thought our defense was better. Uh, I thought that we stayed in front of guys better. Now, Wade Taylor's a hard guy to stay in front of, for sure, and nobody stays in front of him. And sometimes that's the way it is. A team has a player that's like that. But overall, I thought our defense was better. I thought we were fighting through screens better. I mean, I noticed it from the jump, like that we were fighting through screens. We weren't going underneath as much stuff.
Well,
Uh,
I think the first 15 minutes, it looked like a totally different team
I thought so
on
too.
all sides of the ball. It was the first time. I mean, there's been, with the exception of the first couple of games, that was literally the first time in like 10 games that they had mojo for justice for
Hmm.
15 minutes. And when you have dude, that's what happens when you have mojo. You freaking
Yeah,
torch people if you can keep that all the time. And
it's
they
hard. It's
did.
hard to keep it. It's hard to keep it for a game.
And dude, the offense was totally different. I mean, even though it was exactly the same as far as like we weren't running anything particularly different, the bounce, dude, it's just the bounce in their steps. That when the ball hit their hands, they were moving, they were swinging it. You know what I mean? They had a even if they were like not exactly moving, like you could tell everything was with intention. I mean, they were playing basketball back to like their roots or whatever, where they weren't overthinking it. They were in the flow. And like I said, the bad news is, they couldn't sustain that. And but I think the good news is they didn't revert all the way back to the
No,
mean. They came off the high, but like Ellis, I mean, Ellis was playing great, and he came back down and made some more of his, like, reverted to some of the mistakes he was making that got him
I was
benched
glad.
or whatever.
I was glad that Muss rode with him though.
Yeah, because it wasn't, like I said, he didn't go all the way back. It's not like he lost his confidence completely. You know what I mean? Everybody just, like, that energy, he came back down to reality, and we had to actually just grind it out. But yeah, I think there's reason to still be hopeful, even with the fact that you almost let that slip away, and you had a 20-point lead.
It was interesting. I felt like this game. First of all, Tremont Marks player of the game. Um, he was out of his mind. Uh,
Dude, at the end there, if you go back and watch Arkansas's, like, I don't know, last four possessions, two of them, when we were up by like 6 or 5 or 4 or whatever, and Mark didn't touch the ball 2 possessions in a row, and then we didn't score, we didn't get anything, and uh then they tied the game, and I was
yeah.
like, what is
And here's
happening?
the thing about Mark. I mean,
For a
obviously, I
second
mean,
there, for a second, I was trying. You went quiet, and I was like, "So this is how much you talk, dude. I'm not used to not being interrupted."
no,
Like,
no,
I thought
no,
I was like, "Am I talking to nobody? Did you
no,
freeze up?
no, no, no. I didn't. No,
Did my mic go out?"
no. I was just thinking
I
of it.
really was distracted. Like, am I talking to nothing? Am
No,
I going to do
no,
this again?
no. I was just letting you get your point out. Um, and here's the thing about Mark. I mean, obviously he had 35 points, and they just did. I mean, they were throwing two guys at him, and like, I mean, he was great, but uh, he was great on the defensive end too. I mean, he really played hard on the defensive end. Like just
And he played really well
deflections.
because I mean, at the end of the game, when he fouled, like, again, it was like 2 minutes left. I was like, "Ooh, how many is that in him?" They're like, "That's his third." I was like, "Dang, he didn't play pretty good D on some hard guys to only have 2 fouls up into the you know
Yeah, I mean
2 minutes left in the
that
game."
block he had on Taylor where he took. I mean that he had a couple of strips. I mean, I think he had two blocks, like two big blocks.
Although I
Uh,
have to say, if I block Taylor and I'm still gonna have to guard him, I'm not going to yell. I'm just gonna be like, "I'm sorry, don't get mad," because
right.
that's just not really. But that guy, I mean, it's one of those guys. I don't think he's gonna get intimidated. You know what I mean?
No, 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 I don't think so. But he played great. Uh, I thought this was the game where you saw. So there was two big things in this game besides Mark hitting a game winning shot.
I guess.
One,
Can I guess? Well, can I guess him?
get okay, go ahead. Get
The two things that stood out for me, that I would the things that actually don't necessarily apply to the game in any way, other than it's just a curiosity, is one, I was very surprised to see um Blocker not come in until Devo got kicked. Like, I was like, where is Blocker after what he was did last game? And then obviously Battle. Everybody's like all these like he basically Musselman went back to the original lineup, but then Battle didn't come in ever as a sixth man.
Yeah, so
Davenport came in.
that's a little bit sort of my points. I was gonna say one, we might have seen the rotation shorten. Now we'll see if it translates going forward, but really seven. I mean, Blocker came in at the end for some defensive purposes. Really seven guys played, which is sort of vintage, Musselman. So, Tremont Mark goes the full 40. That's what Musselman does, right? So Tremont Mark never comes out. Devo Davis plays 33 minutes. That would have been higher. Ellis plays 31. Lawson plays 27. Brazil plays 34. That's your starters. Davenport gets 15. Menefield gets 13. Mitchell gets 4. Graham gets 3. And, you know, Blocker is in there for like a minute at the end.
Yeah, and even Graham and Mitchell. Well, I think he tried Mitchell actually for a second, and he actually played a couple minutes. Graham, I think, literally got thrown in out of frustration. Like, I mean, so what I'm saying is
Yeah.
Graham didn't go in as like I want to play Graham. Graham went in like a he was like looking at the bench like somebody get in there. I got to go yell at that guy. I can't even
Yeah.
remember who it came if it was Brazil or if it was Lawson, but one of those guys got jerked out and Graham got thrown in there so they could get yelled at for a few minutes.
Yeah. So that was interesting to me. So that's really like seven guys. You really had your 5 starters and then Menefield and Davenport. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was really what it was. Is that going to be the rotation? I don't know, but it did feel more like Musselman, like 5 guys getting a bunch of minutes, 2 guys getting
Did
some minutes.
this year though, dude? I mean I have no idea. After last game, even though I mean it didn't go well, I would have said that Davenport is starting and probably Blocker maybe too. But and then Blocker doesn't play at all. I mean really like until he's forced to play him. So I don't
Well,
know.
what was
And with
interesting. Well,
well I
so
was gonna say is Ellis with Ellis. I'm assuming Ellis is going to play some more now, but for all I know, it's just because A&M was small. Like I
well,
may next week Ellis may not play.
this is interesting. So and so the other thing I was going to say is that Battle doesn't see the floor at all. I don't really know what's going on with that, but something's going on with that. I don't know what it is, but there's something going on there because his minutes have gone down. I mean, what, the last 4 or 5 games?
I need to go back and notice because I wasn't really paying attention. The one time they mentioned that he hadn't gotten any minutes, they showed him, and he did not look. His body language was not great. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. They showed him for freaking 5 seconds. So, but he didn't look pumped about what was happening. And um, I would like to go back and watch and see how involved he was in cheering and stuff. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Because
yeah,
it's got to be an attitude thing to not even play a minute.
yeah,
Like that feels punitive as much as you know what I mean. Like he's a good enough player that you could stick him out when you're got a 20-point lead. You could stick him out there and see if he like buries a couple of threes and puts this game away. I mean, how many mistakes can he make? You can pull him. You know what I mean? Like that feels punitive.
yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely weird. Um, so I did get to listen to as you were finishing up the game, I got to listen to Muss's press conference live, and they asked him about, like, hey, L hasn't played that much, and now all of a sudden he starts and plays, all these minutes, played good. Um, what was up with that? And Muss said some interesting things. He said that he was they were putting in some new stuff, and he said that he intentionally didn't call out 5 guys to run it, and that L ran out onto the floor to be one of the first 5 guys to run it, and that's when he knew he was going to start him.
Hmm.
And he said the 5 guys that ran out on the floor to learn the new stuff were the 5 guys he started.
Hmm.
Which, I mean, okay. Like, he said I wanted to know, and he said I wanted to know who wanted to be out
What
there.
what if the little scruffy haired
I
what's his name? The
don't
little
think. I guess he
scruffy
did.
haired white guy that just chest bumps guys when they come to the bench. What if that guy had run out there?
I don't know. Maybe Muss is willing to try anything at this point. I'm not sure, but that was part of it. And then he also said about Blocker and Pinion that he thought that their game and them playing well in their minutes put a lot of pressure on other guys, and that he said that he felt like in practice that showed, and that they realized that those minutes might not come back to them. So yeah, so I mean, I don't know, but the result is a W, and so I'll take it. I did think L played really well tonight. So L finishes with he plays 31 minutes. I mean, he didn't shoot great. He was 3 of 11, but he also was 8 of 8 from the free throw line. So I mean, he did get fouled 8 times in those 11 shots. I mean, so like you can't
And
hold
that
that
that's the
against
other
him.
thing. I mean, Mark's definitely the player of the game, but at the same time, if Mark hits his free throws, even just his free throws in the last
Well, I mean,
5 minutes,
Mark does go 17 of 22 from the line.
yeah, it's not bad. He just missed it was just a bummer to miss the back end of both of those and leave that open.
Yeah. So Ellis still has 15 points. But the big thing is that Ellis ends up with 6 rebounds, which is tied with Devo Davis for leading in rebounds. So Brazil has 5, Lawson has 5, Ellis has 6, Mark has 6. Oh, sorry, Mark has 5, Devo has 6, and then Menefield and Davenport each have 1. And so Ellis was getting in there and getting after it, trying to rebound. Um,
I feel
he
like I saw him run in there several times and to no avail. And you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's what you got to do. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I like it. I like when I see guards flying through there and they don't end up getting it because the guys are bigger than them. But for every you do that 10 times and you get 2 of them. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yep. So I think L. I mean, I mean, if I'm Muss, I don't know. I'd probably roll those starters out again. They started great, and I think that that's the kind of stuff that Muss wants to see. So L. I thought L also did a good job of. I don't know how many assists he had. I mean, it wasn't a ton, but uh, he had 2 assists. But he did a good job of collapsing the defense some,
Hmm.
which was good. So that was good. Um, you know, I still think Brazil hangs out on the perimeter. I know they're trying to spread the floor for Mark and whoever else, but um, I didn't think Brazil played bad. Brazil ends up with, the thing about Brazil that's weird is he plays 34 minutes. He does have 8 points, 5 rebounds. He has a block. Um, he's only 1 of 5 from the floor. He's 6 of 8 from the free throw line. But the 5 shots is the weird part. Like you're gonna play that many minutes and take 5 shots when you're that guy. You're like, that's I. It sounds like a weird thing to say, but you're like, that's not enough shots, man. Like, and the reason you're only getting that many shots is because you're hanging out waiting on the perimeter, waiting for someone to throw you the ball. Um, I I just think for a guy like Brazil, as gifted as he is, I think 5 shots is not enough.
Yeah, I did like him and I actually liked Lawson and him like Lawson in the high post and him down on the block.
Yeah,
If they could figure out how to run something right there, especially with Mark kind of over on the elbow for the like whole icing his man in place. If you could get Mark on the elbow there, holding that defender and dump it to Lawson at the high post, I like him just turning and making that defender make a decision. If he flinches at all, Brazil's back there on the back line, just toss it up. I mean,
yeah,
I think they did that 3 times and he missed one of them, but he got fouled or dunked it on the other ones.
yeah, yeah. No, I like that too. Um, Before we go to, are we hopeful? Is this the moment? Did they hit rock bottom? Is Muss going to turn it around? Um, Devo ejected. Yes, no. I was pretty surprised by the ejection. I mean, if they had given him a flagrant, I wasn't going to be surprised at all. But when they when they tossed him, I was like, that's
I
wild.
mean, yeah, it depends. I guess it just depends on. I think it's one of those things where I think if he kicks him anywhere else,
Yeah.
he doesn't get thrown out. You know what I mean? It's a little bit like, I mean,
Okay.
dude,
Did
guys,
he kick him on purpose?
I think he stuck his leg out on purpose. I don't think I'd
But
like to
Devo, but
think
dude,
that
it's hard to tell with Devo because he does crazy things with his limbs.
he does, but he also does frustrated things with his limbs too. And I think his leg was already up there. I don't think he brought his leg up like, oh, I'm gonna go kick this guy in the nuts. I think he, like you said, steps like that, had his leg up high, and then did not do what a normal person would do to avoid planting his foot into the guy that's coming at him. You know what I mean? Like, because if
Yeah.
you think about it, like you normally would drop your leg as it would come in, and like I think he kind of held it up there to hold that guy off, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't think he, I would like to, I hope he didn't actually mean to kick him in at all, and certainly not in a sensitive place. But, and like I said, I think that's just, I think if that foot hits that guy in the hip or the thigh or the front of his other thigh, I think they just call it a flagrant one. You know, he kicked out at him. But it's just like with Draymond Green in the NBA and stuff. It's like if you drop that elbow, like on when you're trying to rebound or on the free throw line, and you drop it and really give somebody something in the ribs or in the chest or even in the hip, it's like if they see it, they'll call it. You drop it down and you hit him in the nuts,
Yeah.
you're probably
Yeah.
going to get tossed. You know what I mean? There's the nuts and there's the like throat, face area, like that you can do the exact same thing to any other part of the body, and it's like maybe, but
Yeah.
if you do it to those areas, you get tossed. Like you know, and it's like I guess it's just because it's not for interpretation whether or not you were
Yeah.
trying to do that. So
Oh, I
and
was
actually, I guess they've taken that part out. It's like if you hit somebody above the neck, it doesn't matter if you're trying to or not. It's a you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
they're calling it, and I guess it's kind of probably I don't know if the actual rule is in on the books like that, but
Well,
it's how they
it
applied
was
it.
kind of a bummer because I thought Devo was playing like a more composed game
Hmm.
up to that point. And so that was kind of a bummer. Okay. Wrapping up because it's freaking late and I want to go to bed. But is this something that the Hogs can build on? I mean, is this the moment?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's hard to say. I mean, they they definitely did went a long way in getting over the mental hurdle that they've been having, and I think I mean a lot of it is a lot of what they're going through. A lot of what a lot of them are going through is just their gripping, and they're not just.
Let me put it this way too. Um, there's a world of difference between losing this game and winning it. If they had lost this game that way, I think it's just so demoralizing. I mean, you might, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I mean,
Well, you
you were on the edge of having this be like one of the worst case scenario. I mean, maybe it's not as worse, you know, not as bad as getting beat down by 30 by Auburn or whatever, but in some ways it is. I mean, like if you lose this game, dude, like your confidence is just in complete shambles.
Well, the other thing is we've had several times where Mark is the only one that's playing great or you know, on both sides of the ball. And Mark's had several games where he's tried to put the team on his back and it hasn't worked out. Um, and this one felt even more ridiculous. I mean, what did he end up with? 35
35.
points. To score 35 points and lose another one, you know what I mean? Where you played great defense and then tried to carry your team. And I think you could tell because Mark is a little bit of an emotionally subdued player, you know,
Hmm.
and I mean, you know, he shouts when he does stuff, but he teammate wise seems a little bit sort of more on the stoic side. And I think you could tell it wasn't just normal, like he was pumped, like it was a genuine sense of relief, it looked like on his face, because he went from basically probably having to face the well, the season's over. This whole team is a shambles. We none of us should have come here, and I tried my best and keep no matter what I do, we just lose, and to being a hero and
Yeah.
it not being all for naught. And yeah, I mean, I think definitely for him that would have been devastating. But for all of them, I just hope.
You saw it. Like, I mean, I don't know if you saw that at the end, like Muss and Mark like hitting each other in the chest and stuff.
Mhm,
I mean, Mark does seem like the quintessential like Muss kind of player.
mhm, for sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, he rattled off a bunch of players during that post game interview. Uh, the guys we always talk about. Um, but I just hope that because it's going to happen, a team is going to get the mojo on their side and they're going to go on a little 10-0 run. And I hope these guys during that 10-0 run, when Ellis inevitably turns the ball over and, battles if he's out there, misses a three, like I hope that they can keep their heads in the game, not let it, the clouds roll back in and they can keep
Yeah,
fighting them off. And even like they don't have to like be in the flow all the time, but if they can even just, not go all the way back to where they were, during that Auburn game.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I guess the final question is, Mark's a junior. You should come back probably too. We'll just we'll run it back, dude. It's funny, like there's these players that Musk gets, and like you see him like, and he's starting to use Mark the same way he used Council and the same way he used Mason Jones. I mean, Mark's that guy at this point on this team, right?
Note that one season. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's that guy at this point, right? Like where like that's where
Mhm.
the ball goes at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially, I mean, it was already this case that like everyone knew Mark is gonna like a guy you got to watch. After a game like that, though, especially with none of the other guys playing exceptional. I mean, they're all playing okay, but like nobody's like else is done. I mean, definitely. If I was a coach of an opposing team, what would you do? I'd be like, well, somebody else is going to beat us. I'm freaking double teaming that guy
Yeah.
all the time. I'm getting the ball out of his hands. I'm double teaming him in half court, and I'd make somebody else beat us. And I hope the other guys are prepared for. Mark is going to be getting a lot of heat now. Luckily, I think he's a pretty difficult guy player to do that to
Yeah.
because he does tend
Left-handed.
to he's left-handed, he tends to see it coming, and as soon as that guy closes in on him, that's when because he'll dribble. I mean, like we were just talking before, he's very good at dribbling and keeping his dribble and getting to his spot. And if that second defender comes, it seems like as soon as he sees that guy cross at one point, he picks it up, Euro steps right into them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if you and if you
he's
if you try to
very
back up, he'll hit that floater.
yeah.
If you don't, he goes to the free throw line.
He's
So
very good at getting fouled.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean
So
a guy that's very good at getting fouled is hard to double because
yeah,
that's two now he's got two options of getting fouled, right? Like and so he's gonna try to make one of you foul him.
yeah. So I mean, but I do think like if he can pass a little bit, some guys are going to get some open shots because I think Mark's got some doubles coming at him.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, South Carolina on Saturday. Uh gotta get
You
it.
gotta have it.
We went through it, man. That's a home win you gotta have. So South Carolina at Bud Walton, gotta have it. And then, let's go. Then you're not quite you're not at 500 yet, but then you got Kentucky and no, so I'm sorry. Then you have Ole Miss, um, which is going to be tough. I mean, Ole Miss is a ranked team, but what you're what you're looking at trying to do is to try to. I mean, ideally, what you're trying to do right now is the Hogs. You're trying to get South Carolina. You're trying to get Ole Miss before you get to Kentucky. Um, you'd like to be 3-3 in the league, facing Kentucky. That would be ideal. So see if they can get there.
There's still a flicker, a flame, but
There it
it's
is.
small.
It is. All right, man.
All
Well,
right.
I'll see you on Saturday.
See ya.